From two great writers come two great novels that carve a path for their respective generations. Mark Twain, one of the greatest humorists of all time, wrote The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn during the 19th century. Roughly 75 years later, Jack Kerouac, one of the major pioneers of the Beat generation, wrote On the Road. Two completely different people, writing in two completely different times, happen to create works that have many similar characteristics and themes throughout their respective stories. These two traveling narratives caught everyone's attention, and rightfully so.
The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was published in England in 1884. Originally known for its colorful descriptions of the river and satirizing a southern antebellum, the novel is the first of its kind written in the vernacular. The novel's main embodiment is the search for freedom, which is very prevalent in this time because of the Civil War and the great tension between whites and blacks. The book has also been deemed racist in some cases for its overuse of the N-word and for Jim's Sambo-like character. Also, throughout the story, Huck has trouble deciding between living in society and living in nature with Jim. His value of Jim's friendship directly affects his decision whether or not to refute the values of society that he has been taught. Just like On the Road, Huckleberry Finn was greatly criticized, but that did not stop each of these novels from becoming two of the most well-known books of all time.
On the Road, which was written in 1951, was not published until 1957, interestingly enough. Narrated by Sal Paradise, it is known as a spontaneous autobiography, as it is based on the road trips of Jack Kerouac and his companions. The novel was also known as one of the first great stories to come out of the Beat generation. What's funny about this story is that Kerouac also boasted for writing the story in 3 weeks. However, the actual book did not get published for 6 years because of complications. The novel brings in present-day conflicts such as racism, drugs, alcoholism, and sexuality.
Now starting with the two authors. Both Twain and Kerouac took voyages or significant trips that influenced their writings in the future. Twain was on a steamboat trip when he became inspired to write Huck Finn. His trips down the river gave him material to use when writing about Jim and Huck's adventure on the river. Kerouac specifically went on a trip, unlike Twain, so that he could write a book. He had in his mind throughout the trip that he was going to write a novel. Both authors created narrators to lead their stories.
Sal Paradise and Huck Finn, two naive narrators from their stories, both try and capture the essence of life in their real-life depictions of each person's experiences on the road. Both characters commentate on what is going on throughout their respective novels, trying to give the reader a better picture of what is happening. However, in Kerouac's novel, his settings and events that occur are much more mature and hardcore than what happens in Twain's novel. Also, since Sal is older, more mature character, his storytelling takes on another level of adult content, contrary to Huck, who is only a kid and rarely has to deal with adult-like conflicts. What is also interesting about these two characters is their need for a companion or partner throughout their travels.
Sal and Dean, like Huck and Jim, are codependent of each other so that each can survive and steer clear of loneliness. Dean and Sal travel throughout the entire book together, which is exactly how Huck and Jim operate. When Huck and Jim travel to the island, that is home, just like their home back on the mainland as well. The characters need each other to create a sense of family since their families back home have fallen apart. As Jim and Dean are two characters associated with the main narrative, they also have many characteristics in common.
Jim and Dean, two primary characters in their respective novels, both have tight relationships with their narrators. However, when all is said and done, end up having no one by their sides. Dean travels with Sal everywhere throughout the novel, so you could say that while they're on the road, they are family. However, once Sal and Dean get back to the real world at the end of the novel, Dean is left abandoned by Sal and Sal's new family. It was time for everyone to grow up and move on, but Dean wasn't ready to. For Jim, him and Huck had to always keep their friendship quiet. At this time, blacks were not really allowed to associate themselves with whites. But when Huck and Jim are on the river, they have to survive together and become very brotherly like. They find that sense of family that they were so desperately in need of. Here's a clip to emphasize their relationship.
Going nowhere without you.
What are you doing, Jim? Don't catch you.
They won't find you here in the dark. I got to get you to a doctor.
I'll be okay. You can't take me, Jim. Catch you. Don't let you. Don't go, Jim.
I don't care what happens to me, Huck. I just want to get you wet.
Jim.
I gotta get you.
Jim.
We had us a great adventure, didn't we, Jim?
Sure did.
Interestingly enough, these characters also have troubles with the reoccurring theme of alcohol. Huck and Jim try to escape Huck's father's drunken grasp in the wooden cabin, while Dean and Sal use alcohol to escape from the real world and the troubles that are chasing them. Although they deal with it in different ways, the characters have to cope with the trouble that alcohol brings them. As alcohol was an escape for Sal and Dean, the road and the river in their respective stories represent freedom.
In Kerouac's novel, the road is an escape for Sal and Dean from the real world. However, the river for Huck and Jim is their only means for escape and survival. The river that Huck and Jim are on is a symbol of freedom. The river, however, is controlling and is a natural power that can decide the fate of Huck and Jim. The road, for Kerouac, is just an escape from society and a way to open their minds to greater things. Another interesting thing the river and the road show about these characters is how they are able to behave around one another while they are on the road and on the river.
Although time separates these two narratives, the themes remain the same. Both stories emphasize the need for freedom and individuality through many experiences you might incur as a wanderer. They also share a need for relationships and friendships to share these experiences with. Although very different, these novels are also very alike in the sense that Twain and Keroac suggest that life is best lived when you go out and experience it rather than let it come to you.